Welcome to Mentor Moments, a podcast presented by the Missouri Rehabilitation Association Eastern Chapter. Join your hosts Dr. Michael Keener and therapist Brayton Wooters as they introduce remarkable professionals, tackle current topics and issues, and highlight the importance of mentorship.
On this very special episode of Mentor Moments, we'll be talking about self-care with Katie and Thomas Wolff.
Katie is the Senior Behavioral Health Care Manager at Magellan Health.
And Thomas is the Clinical Service Supervisor at Barnes Jewish Hospital. Well, another exciting episode. It's sort of a special, we're in person. Two people who are a couple / married. I like to say the program found love for them, but they met after the program, but but we'll get into that. So we're happy to have Katie and Thomas here today. So again, let's jump right in. We're going to be talking a little bit about self-care, but I guess our first question usually is tell us about your professional journey, sort of how did you start? Do you have any pivotal moments?
Yeah, so I went to Maryville, of course, graduated from the rehab counseling program in 2013. And during that time, I kind of think of like my journey being definitely starting with my internships and practicums, where I worked at Edgewood Children's Center, which is now Great Circle. And then from there went to the St. Louis Crisis Nursery, Healing Hearts Grief Support, which is now dissolved, but was partnered with BJC for a while, and then was on its own as a nonprofit. And then from there went to Kids in the Middle. So I had a lot of experience working with kids, with youth, with grief work, and then kind of overlapping, I started working with St. Patrick's Center as a mental health specialist with their assertive community treatment team. From there, I kind of jumped around. I feel like I've had a lot of different experiences, but I worked with Castlewood Treatment Center, working with eating disorders. I've volunteered with the Healing Hearts Grief Support. I also worked at Youth in Need with Youth. I worked at Kids in the Middle, Goodwill, Maryville as an adjunct. So I've kind of had my hand in a lot of different things, which I feel like has been super rewarding and like definitely has given me this really well-rounded approach to how I see people. Had the opportunity to work with a lot of different populations, which has been really great, both for-profit and nonprofit, which has given me a lot of understanding of kind of what we're looking at in this field. So I don't know, it's hard to say like one big thing has definitely shaped me. I mean, we could talk for a long time about that. I feel like,
Let's do it.
But I think all of them have made a really strong impact on me. I was talking with someone recently about like, why do you do what you do? Why are you in this field? And I think there's a part of me in certain phases in my life where I've stopped to kind of pause and think of like, what have those things and experiences taught me? How do I integrate them into who I am now personally, but also professionally? And I think I'm definitely at a point in my life where I'm reassessing those things and trying to figure out like, what has that meant to me? How has it shaped me? And what is it going to do for me going forward? If that makes sense. It's your long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
Yeah.
And you're also an undergrad in the Rehab Services program. So I guess, maybe not sort of a modern moment, but sort of what drove you to sort of make, the helping professions or working with people with disabilities or...
Yeah, that's also like a multi-pronged answer. The biggest answer I'll give for now, I guess, is, and I was just talking with my therapist about this actually, which is another plug we can share later about therapists going to therapy. But because I am in that place of like looking at why am I here? What am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I still in this profession? And how did I get here in the first place? So I have an aunt that was born with an intellectual disability. And so watching her, like as I grew up watching her and the way she was treated, the way she was spoken to, the way she was treated differently, not fairly, not humanely in a lot of ways, really shaped for me how people should be treated, how I saw that, how she deserved better from her community. And so I think that was a huge proponent of why I got where I got, why Maryville attracted me as well in this program. I don't think I realized that till much later in the program. like reflecting back on my personal experiences, but I think she was a huge proponent of that. And just like my philosophy towards people and humans and what we all deserve and have a right to. So
Well, we're certainly glad you made that choice and journey.
I am too.
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but I want to make
Yeah.
sure. Where are you currently?
I work for a healthcare company right now, so a little bit different of a turn I've taken, and I do a lot of work doing employee assistance program intakes, so like helping people assess what they need in terms of mental health services, and then helping connect them with different services, whether that's outpatient care or a higher level of care. And then we also we work with insurance as well, so I'll do like pre-authorizations for higher levels of care. And then crisis work. So we operate as a national crisis line as well. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of things right now. Yeah.
Me?
Yes, you, Thomas.
So yeah, my professional journey was a little different. So I joined this program a little bit later in life, I guess. So I worked in sales and marketing and did stuff with Anheuser-Busch for quite a long time. And then finally was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I knew what I was doing professionally, but I didn't know why I was there, right? So I had always wanted to get into kind of the helping profession in the field and all that stuff. So I was like, I quit. I'm leaving AB and I'm going back to school. So I remember coming here and talking with you and Dr. Bertolino and I remember sitting with Dr. Bertolino and saying, basically, why should we allow you in this program, right? And I remember getting kind of fired up about it and being like, well, if you don't let me in, I really don't care because I'll go somewhere. I'm going to do this, right? And so him and I hit it off pretty well after that. And then I started here, graduated in 2014, did, like Katie was saying, did my internship. I did my practicum at MERS Goodwill, which is where I was working at the time. And then I did my internship at the VA, which has been my goal, was to work with veterans for a very long time and still have that passion. And then after graduation, still worked at Goodwill, did a lot with veteran treatment courts within St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and then found an opportunity at the one and only Maryville University, and joined here and was working with student veterans for a good period of time. And then was not actually even looking for another position and very rarely get on LinkedIn. And I got on LinkedIn randomly and a job popped up, and it was through BJC, behavioral health, and it was working with law enforcement, right? So I think that that's very needed and I'm passionate about it. Like, law enforcement wears way too many hats, and if they need kind of some consulting and assistance from a mental health standpoint, then I'd be happy to offer that. So that's where I'm at currently. So I'm a clinical service supervisor for BJC. I oversee 988 mobile crisis team. I oversee community behavioral health liaisons, youth behavioral health liaisons, a part of the St. Louis County crisis negotiation team. We do FBI threat analysis and threat management. So kind of have my hand in a lot of different things. I think that a pivotal moment for me, for sure, was coming here. I mean, not to like pump the tires on Maryville. I don't think I need to do that, but I mean, it was very pivotal for me. Like, I looked at multiple different programs, and then I remember coming here and doing the things for admissions. I don't know how you all navigate that now or have done in the past, but like the interview, talking with you and Dr. Bertolino, and like, I was like, this just feels right? Like it feels good. So that was definitely a pivotal. Like, I took a big plunge and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, right? And quit Anheuser-Busch and started working for the Division of Youth Services right out of the gate. So that was a definite culture shock.
I have so many questions. There's so many places to go with that. First, I'm wondering if you remember that conversation.
I clearly remember both of them. Katie being an undergrad, we just, they were bridging into the grad program and having those conversations. I do remember talking about your aunt before. I remember Thomas and research methods, and we're like the room is sort of not the room anymore. It's sort of an office building versus a classroom over in the other building. Again, knew Tommy was at MERS and his passion for working with vets. Their class was pretty close, so I sort of remember that class as a whole. So
I'm wondering if there was a moment distinctly that you can remember where sometimes it's like a long process, and for some other people it's like a wake up moment, like, oh, I don't want to work here anymore. So I'm wondering if there's like a specific point, or if it was just kind of a long gradual process of like.
Yeah, it was a long gradual process. Like I knew I wanted to do, so be 100% transparent. Like my thing was, I graduated from UMSL in 2004. I got out of high school and I was on an athletic scholarship for a little while, and I just didn't. I mean, I didn't care about school. I really didn't. I didn't care. I went to class. I practiced. I went to study hall. I did all the stuff that I was supposed to do, and I graduated. But like I just simply coasted, didn't care, and so I was under the impression that people go to graduate school or people go get their PhD or whatever they do, and that just wasn't for me, right? Like I just in my head, I wasn't smart enough, right? Like, okay, people do that, I just can't do it. And then to take that leap to go back 10 years later to school, I was terrified. Like I was like, I don't know how to study anymore. Like I don't know how to write a paper. Like what is this? I remember you're supposed to do like cite your sources and all that stuff, but I don't remember any of that. And then when I was in undergrad, like I didn't get that great at grades, right? Like I graduated, but I just, because I wasn't into it. Like my heart wasn't into it. And then I got here and I got past the, oh crap moment, right? And then, I was super into it and super passionate. So it made it all that much more easier.
I was going to touch on this later, but like I tease Tommy about like there's business Tommy and then there's husband Tommy sometimes. And he is a great businessman in a lot of ways. And so I think your personality and a lot of your strengths lead you into like a corporate role, businessy type of jobs. But there was still something, this is what you've told me at least, is there was always something within you that felt like this doesn't fit me and who I am and what I'm really passionate about. So while you were good at what you did at AB and you could have continued to be successful there, you weren't ever really satisfied or like fulfilled with what you were doing.
Yeah, that was definitely it. And then now, I mean, it is the cliche and cheesy thing to say, but I honestly, I love what I do. I love my job. Is it stressful? Is it taxing? Is it everything? 100%. But yeah, I love what I do. So I'm fortunate.
Just makes me think about existentialism, both of you, right? Finding your purpose and meaning, and what is this
all of a sudden we've been drawn into oral exams.
Right, oral exams, yes. Well, I'm just like, one of the reasons why I wanted you both on Mentor Moments and together was, I kind of said it in the email when I asked you, I feel like you're the modern counselors, right? That you are looking out for yourself, for your family, for the two of you, and also the profession, and really trying to find that right balance. I mean, it's almost like my Facebook envy of the two of you, right? That's what whether it's true or not, that's what I perceive when I see the two of you, that you have a good sound head on your shoulders, you want to give back, but you also have good boundaries, right? And you can say no, but you also want to give back. And
right. And so, that's something that both her and I did not mention is we both did private practice and had our own LLCs, and we operated in the same office space. And then I would use it said days and she would use it the other days. And then when we found out that our daughter was on her way, and it was very difficult to do we had multiple conversations about it, but we both shut down the private practice, right? We gave obviously our clients a ton of notice, let them know that it is an undisclosed amount of time. Like we're not saying, hey, we'll probably be back in 6 months, because we didn't know that answer, right? Gave them a plethora of referrals and all that other stuff, but we had to set that boundary for ourselves because we knew that we needed to devote the time for ourselves. And then once our daughter showed up, for family time, right? Because, she was working nonstop and then working on Saturdays, and I was working nonstop and then going from my normal job to, 3 or 4 clients in the evening and then getting home at 9 or 10 o'clock. Like it was great and we enjoyed it, but we had to set that self-care boundary.
It's difficult to find people to model that off of. So making those decisions of like when to back off, when to hit the brakes, when to hit the gas, were there people in your lives that you modeled your professional career off of, that you went to for advice on like how to manage these sort of things?
I think when it came to starting private practice and just in general professionally, I I leaned on my supervisor when I was going through licensure quite a bit. So Sarah Couch, who I met at Youth in Need, and she's in private practice now out of state, but she was just a huge support for me. Like she had her own private practice at one point as well. So just learning from her of like the business side of things and insurance and all these, so much paperwork that, I needed to be ready for. So she was, clinically and administratively, business wise, like she was a huge support for me. I've always admired her as a clinician, and just she's someone who has great boundaries, has a great personality at the same time, and like does a really great job of bringing that into her practice. She's always been a great role model for me. Two other people. So Monica Leeser, who I know Dr. K you're familiar with. I'm not sure if you are, Brayden, but she was an adjunct here at some point, and she is the owner of Sandhill Counseling and Consultation here in St. Louis. So I remember meeting her in the program as an adjunct professor, and I had her for several classes, and just being kind of in awe of her. Of like, she's so passionate. At the time, I don't even know how old she is, but at the time I remember thinking like, she's so young and like so smart and so passionate about marriage and family therapy. And I was like, I want to be that. I want to be her. Like, she's got so much energy, and like, she seems to really love what she does. And I always held on to that of like, if you're not that excited about something, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like, she really embodied for me what I wanted to be as a clinician. And she's still has as much energy and like excitement about it now every time I've connected with her. And then Mary Schrader, who also came through the program here. And so she founded Healing Hearts Grief Support. And so she was she's always been a mentor for me from day one in terms of practicum, but then I also stayed on volunteering with her. And so similar, I guess, traits that they all had, and that these women, I felt like, were all very strong, independent, driven, passionate, and they were more than willing to like share their expertise and just be an open book for me personally and professionally. And definitely Mary taught me a lot about like what it is to bring your personality to the table, and making sure that, yeah, you have boundaries, you have ethics in this field, but like you can still be yourself, which is such a huge part of how you connect with people. And so I say all of that to say they all three have made a huge impact on me, and I've definitely gone to them at certain points in my career to be like, what am I doing? Like, what do you see that I'm doing? Am I doing it right? I need feedback. I need help. I need guidance on private practice. Like, and I know the door is always open, even if it's been time that has passed between when I've spoken to them. So
wish everybody could have those people in their lives to have that.
And there's many more for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, so leaning on my supervisor for licensure. So her name is Jessica Wellman, and her and she knew Katie from a previous role, and met her to like, I guess, kind of interview for licensure to see if she could take me on. And we have very similar styles where we're, compassionate and stuff, but there is a hard boundary setting right within private practice. And, kind of like what I said before with even getting into this program and trying to figure out, can I do this? Can I study? Can I take tests? Can I do all this stuff? She helped me with like, imposter syndrome. Like I was like, who's going to listen to me? Like, why would anyone listen to me? Like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Right. But subconsciously it's there, right? Like I found that, while you're not reading out of a book or you can't quote certain statistics, but like you get in the moment and it's like riding a bike, it flows. So she helped me see that, right? Like she helped me see that, hey, you do know what you're talking about and you do have certain things to offer people, which was huge for me. It was eye-opening. And then I'll never forget too, I forgot what class it was for, but we had to interview someone for a class. And I interviewed Armando, who was a graduate of this program, and he worked with vets. And I remember he was at the vet center at that time with the VA, which used to be Alpha Olive, now it's in Creve Coeur. And I remember going to his office, and I didn't really know him, right? I think I'd come to you, Dr. Keener, and was like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And you told me to reach out to him. I reached out to him, and I had never met him. And I show up at his office, and I remember him being like super nice, right? Welcoming and everything else. But then as we started talking, he had like this fire to him too. Like he was boundaries. I'll be as compassionate as you want. I'll give you a hug, but then also at the same time, no BS, right? Like we're going to put in the work. We're going to do what we're supposed to do. If you want results, you got to get your hands dirty. And so I was like, oh my God, like that's me. Like that's what I love. So yeah, I mean, I think those two, and like Katie said, many more.
It's like a who's who.
I know,
Honestly,
right?
like the amount of name dropping.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, we gotta get these on,
I know,
on
that's
the
what
show.
I'm thinking.
Okay, we got some names here.
Yeah.
So seeing that was sort of the special issue or special episode about self-care, and so how do you monitor your self-care and how do you stay energized to be effective?
Tommy and I talk a lot about self-care,
We
of
do.
course.
Yeah, I kind of have a pet peeve about self-care,
Mm.
and I don't want to get too high on the soapbox, but I've been asked a couple times to give presentations to folks about self-care, and the two like kind of departments that I oversee within BGC is all crisis, right? It's nonstop crisis. You know, self-care is a huge buzzword, and it is something that should be talked about, right? But I get a little bit on my high horse when people are like, let's talk about self-care and how important it is. Yes, it is very important, right? And I would be bashing this very podcast if I didn't like kind of clarify that, is everyone knows that self-care is needed, right? But you do need to know what that is for you.
Mm.
And, you know, a lot of people talk about like, oh, you should journal and everything else, which is fantastic for Katie. Katie does that, right? That's not me, like 100% not me. And you have to know your role within that. And I think it's a humbling experience that you have to be honest with yourself about it. And another thing that I tell employees is that, you know, I can preach to you all day about self-care and what you're supposed to do and how it's important, but you know self-care is important. If you sit down and you really think about it, you know it. But the thing is that you have to take time for it. And so I always use this analogy of, you know, when I get up in the morning, everyone has their certain routines. I would never be like, hey, I'm so late that I'm going to run out to work and I'm not going to brush my teeth, right? It's what I'm going to do, right? You brush your teeth before you leave. Like I always have to shower in the morning. I'm not a shower in the evening person, right? So you have that routine, and that is what self-care is. You wouldn't skip brushing your teeth, so don't skip X, whatever that is, right? Running, reading, hang out with friends, going walk for having an amazing pet, right?
You just made points with the wife.
Right? Right. So whatever that is, make it a commitment. I commit to brushing my teeth every morning, so you need to make a commitment to doing whatever it is that you need to do. And I think that I am very lucky to have a great partner to where we both help each other with that, right? So we know the profession, we know how things are taxing, we know sometimes what the other person needs, but you know, I remind her of that and she reminds me of that. And sometimes you need to be put in check, right? Sometimes you think you're doing it, but you're really not. Sometimes you think you're doing certain steps, but you're overlooking them and you're not able to recognize that within yourself, and you need an outside person to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a conversation with internship students this semester, and I was trying to start every class with, what are you doing to take care of yourself? And what we sort of talked about was, for them right now, it was just another thing added to the plate that was already overloaded, right? And so I was trying to reframe it in another way where, you know, like, okay, it's not an add-on. So how can we anyways, I don't know if we came to a conclusion, but that was sort of the light bulb moment in class. Like, when you ask us to take self-care, it's another thing we don't have time to do. So,
but that's such a thing, is like, if I don't do that self-care or I don't do what I need to do when I show up for my marriage, when I show up for work, when I show up for my daughter, when I show up for my family, am I showing up? And the answer is no, right? So you might be showing up, but you're a version of yourself that is not what you are.
I mean, I think it's in the name, right? Self-care. So like, what are you doing to care for yourself? So sometimes I feel like for myself, but also for other people, definitely for clients, it's just bringing it back to the basics. Like, are you eating? Are you drinking water? Are you getting rest? Are you showering. Are you
Mhm.
so sometimes like taking care of yourself or giving yourself self-care is just taking care of your basic needs, and making sure those are met. But then that's always that conversation, like how are you integrating it into your day-to-day without feeling like it's another to-do list, another thing on your to-do list, or something that feels like it's going to cost a lot of money. Because I think kind of what Tommy's saying, what we talk about a lot is like self-care doesn't mean going to get your nails done and spa days and vacations all the time, because that's just not realistic for people. And while that can be a great distraction and can help people reset, is it intentional, and is it actually meeting a need for you? Like, that sounds great. Like if you're like, I get my nails done and Tommy teases like, oh, it's your self-care. In some ways it is, because it's alone time for me. It's quiet. Me and the gentleman that do my nails, like we talk sometimes, but he also understands that like sometimes I just need quiet space. And I do take that time to like decompress and reflect on certain things. And a lot of times I'll go journal afterwards, because that's my thing that helps me. But it meets a need for me. It's not just like I get my nails done and that's self-care, what kind of need is it meeting? How is it actually caring for you?
This has been part 1 of our 2-part interview with Thomas and Katie Wolff. Stay tuned to hear the rest of our discussions on self-care, relationships, and for Thomas and Katie to share their mentor moments.
Are you ready for a career that makes a difference in your community? Consider becoming a counselor with Missouri Vocational Rehabilitation.
Vocational rehabilitation counselor helps people who have disabilities find a career path that helps to use their strengths. When people have the supports that they need, it makes anything possible.
I am proud that I'm able to help people change their life and reach for their dream goals.
Discover the change you can make. Visit mvr.mo.gov to get started.